We've taken a look at switch ports on a switch, and we've taken a look at routed ports on a router. But in this video, let's take a look at what it looks like when we turn a switch port into a routed port. So that is a switch that has switch ports on it, and we turn one of them into a routed port. Now we can do this on a layer 3 device. So I'm on a layer 3 switch right here, a 3750. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure it to be a routed port, or at least one of the ports to be a routed port. So I have to choose one. I'm going to first of all just do a show IP interface brief and see what ports I have here. The one I'm going to actually change is going to be this fast Ethernet 1048. So let's just take a look at what the running config looks like on that right now. So I'm going to do show run interface FA1048. We'll hit enter. And we can see that there's no configurations on it right now. Let's go ahead and jump into that interface and start configuring it. So I'm going to get into global configuration mode, go into the interface FA1048, and we're now configuring the interface. And the command, we pretty much just need two commands to turn this into a routed port. Actually, just one turns it into a routed port and the other one assigns an IP address to it. So we're going to type in no switch port, and that's what turns it into a switch port. Let's go ahead and take a look at the running config now and see what happens with it. So do show run interface FA1048. We'll hit enter. And we see it has the no switch port on there, and it also has a no IP address because it is expecting an IP address. So let's type in the IP address that we're going to give it. I'm just going to come up with one, so maybe 10.10.10.10. We'll just have all 10s there. We'll do a 255.255.255.2, well, let's do a .0, so a /24. We hit enter, and now this should be set up now to be a routed port. It acts as if it's a router. There is a couple steps. Because this is a layer 3 switch, it can do routing and utilize this port for routing, but I don't have routing turned on right now. Really, I'm just showing you this to show you one of the differences between these routed ports and a switch port. So I'd have to type in IP routing on the global configuration mode to turn on routing on this. So what I'm going to do is end out of here, and let's just take a look at a few of the settings here. I'm going to do a show run interface and then FA1048, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. And then I'm going to do a show IP interface brief and see what it looks like. There's our IP address that we have assigned to it. Now I can do a show interface status, and we can see what the status of these different connections are, and we're looking for 48, which is routed, so we can see that that's routed from there. And finally, what we're going to do is a show interface FA1048 switch port, and we can see that switch port is disabled on it. So now let's say, now what I want to do is reverse this. What I can do to reverse this is go back into global configuration mode and then get into the interface FA1048. I'm going to apply the switch port back onto it. Maybe I'll take off the IP address first, so no IP address. And then I'll do a switch port, which turns it back into a switch port. So I can end out of this, go back and do my show interface FA1048 switch port command, and I can see that switch port is enabled and has a bunch of stats on the switch port and some VLAN information on it. So there you have it. So this is one way to turn a switch port into a routed port. And so then we've turned it back into a switch port command. We will be using that later on. We're not going to use this one right away, but we're going to be using it when we turn a layer 3 switch into a actual operating at a layer 3. And so we'll get into that when we get into VLANs. So there you have it. Thanks for joining me.